This is the beginning of a series of lessons on how to create a works cited entry for an annotated bibliography. In order to move through this process, I have a selection of works cited entries from students that I am going to use to show you how to set up correct works cited entries. Now, one of the things you're going to need in order to follow along with the lesson is a container page. Now, in order to find that, you're going to go to my website, ellwoodeducation.com. And when you get to my website, in the upper right-hand corner, there's going to be a search bar. Click in there and type in container or works cited entries or works cited, and you will get a selection on another page. Click on Works Cited Pages. You'll get more selections on that page. Click on Containers, and then click on the document to open it up. What you will get is this really super scary thing that isn't really scary at all. The Works Cited page, Guidelines. Now this is a series of elements that you will organize in this order for your works cited entries. The first aspect of the container is the author's name, followed by a period. Now, some people will lead with the director or the editor, but that would be a very different kind of project. We're going to focus on the author. So the author's name on our paper is set up correctly. The last name, comma, first name, middle initial, period. If the author doesn't have a middle initial, your period would be after the first name. Now, one of the things that I'm noticing is that I'm not in the right font here. The font size is correct, but Arial is not correct. So in order to change my entire document, I'm going to hit Control-A to capture the entire document so that everything on this document can be changed all at the same time. And I'm going to go up here to Arial, click on the arrow, and click on Times New Roman. Now, the next thing on the works cited container list page is the title of the source. Notice that this has quotation marks around it. Notice that the period is inside of the quotation marks right here. Make this a little bigger. Now, the source could be an article, it could be a story, it could be a poem. Notice those all have quotation marks around them. Those are smaller things inside of bigger things, but they are the source. My source could also be a book, a movie, a newspaper, or a TV show. Notice that those items are all in italics. So let's take a look at what we have here. Because there's quotation marks around it, I know that it's a smaller thing within a bigger thing. Notice that there's a period at the end and that the period is inside of the closing quotation mark. We call this an opening quotation mark. We call this a closing quotation mark. Be sure that your quotation marks are facing towards the item that they apply to. Notice also in the source, some words are capitalized and some aren't. This is an article, so it's lowercase. This is the first part of an infinitive of to prove, so it's lowercase. It doesn't matter how your title for your source is structured in the source. You are to capitalize according to standard capitalization. Now, the next element we have is the name of the container. The name of the container is in italics, followed by a comma. A container could be a book, periodical, a website, a film, TV series. In this particular instance, it's a website. I know that because I have a URL here. Now, Newsweek needs to be in italics because containers are always italicized. In order to double check that I have the container correct, it looks like it is because I have Newsweek here, but also in order to find the next element, I'm going to go to the site. My next element, other contributors, no. Version, no. Number, no. Publisher, yep, gonna have a publisher. Now, in order to double check that this is correct, and in order to check on the publisher, I'm going to go to the site. So I'm going to open up a link up here, cut and paste the URL, and have a look. So Newsweek is the name of the container. In order to find the publisher, I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. Now, down here, it might list a publisher, but it doesn't. So my next best option would be whoever owns the copyright. Newsweek owns the copyright of Newsweek. So now I'm going to go back over here and type in Newsweek. And that's going to be followed with a comma. Now, if the name of the container and the name of the publisher is the same, we omit the name of the publisher. The next item on the container list is the publication date, followed by a comma. There's some options here for date. It could be the year. It could be an exact date. It could be a series. Or it could be a date that includes the time. So let's go back to the site and let's see what it says about the date. If there is a date, and there isn't always, but if there is a date, it's usually going to be at the top. And as you can see, right next to the author's name, right under it, is a date, 9/25/17 at 1:40 p.m. So I'm going to move that off screen so that I can type that in. So that would be 9/25/17 at 1:40 p.m. That's going to be followed by a comma. Now, the problem here is that it isn't set up correctly. MLA wants the day, an abbreviation of the month, and the full rendering of the year. If there's a time, it's going to be a comma, 1:40, and the PM is going to be lowercase with periods, and then the unit is going to be followed with a comma. Notice on the container page that I have provided all of the abbreviations for the months here. May is the shortest month of all, and then the 2 months that follow that are not abbreviated. So May, June, July, not abbreviated. Notice that September is not SEP, it's SEPT. Okay, let's go back up here. Now we have, next in line here is the URL. Let's see what's next on our citation page. After the publication date, we need the locations. That's going to be pages, a URL, a DOI, all kinds of different options here. So the location is the URL. When you are putting a URL in your works cited entry, please do not include the http // : that's not appropriate. Before we start breaking up our URL, we need to establish our hanging indent. So I'm going to tab over that second line, and look what happens. When I tab over the second line, the first line does something strange. This is because all of this text is wrapped. Your computer's going to wrap text so that when you get to the end of a line, you don't have to hit the enter key here in order to type the next line. You just keep typing, and the computer organizes it into lines for you. In order to tab the second and the third lines over without disrupting anything, you need to unwrap the text. So you're going to put your cursor at the end of the first line and hit enter, and then tab it over. Now we have some very strange line spacing. So I'm going to fix the line spacing on the entire document. So hit Control A, and I have now highlighted the entire document. In order to get rid of that extra space between my first and second lines of my citation, I'm going to go up to these three dots, and I'm going to find the lines with the arrow. It's called line spacing. Click on that and change it to single. That's not quite all I need to do, however. Let's go back up here to line spacing again, and let's go down to custom spacing right here. Click on that. Now you see that we have line spacing is 1, before is 15, and after is 15. These numbers here are going to cause you a problem. So you're going to click into this box and change 15 to 0. And then you're going to click into this box and change that 15 to 0. And then you're going to apply. Now we've gotten rid of all the additional crazy spacing. So I'm going to go to the bottom of this particular entry and separate it from the one below it. Now we have a URL here, but we didn't fill this line. In MLA, a works cited entry has every single line filled except for, obviously, the last line, if there isn't enough text to fill the last line. In order to fill this line, I need to move some of this up here. In order to do that, I have to break the URL somewhere. You can break a URL after any kind of symbol, a slash, punctuation, anything like that. If you have a URL that's so long that it has many, many words and it doesn't have a slash or a symbol or punctuation, you may divide that URL between words, but never divide a URL in the middle of a word. If you have a URL that has lots of hyphens or symbols, then you need to include that on the top line, not on the bottom line. So I'm going to guess that I could probably move this much of the URL up to this line. So I'm going to put my cursor here and hit enter. Notice that that bounces that line up, but also notice that from here to the end of the line, I still have more space to fill. So I'm going to put data. I can't put data without the hyphen. I'm going to put prove, and I have to add the hyphen, and maybe I can put it, but I can only put it if I can also put the hyphen. I don't think I'm going to get this number up here, so I'm going to leave that on the third line. I'm going to delete out everything that I put up in line 2. Now notice that that is followed by a period. Let's look at the container page. Get in the habit of constantly looking at your container page. the location is followed by a period. My access date is almost correct, except it's missing the year. So I'm going to put 2020 here and a period at the end. Please don't forget to put a period after your abbreviation of the month. Don't forget to put a period at the end. Okay, there will be more lessons as I'm moving through all of these different citations. So check back.